Hey, Rebecca,
Hello,
do you have the agenda, right?
maybe.
Okay,
Do you have the agenda?
I do.
Can you put it up? Share your screen?
Absolutely. Hang on a second.
Winston Harris here. I just wanted to test that my mic is working.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
You see it?
Yes, it can.
Okay, cool.
Hi, this is the captionist. I was wondering if somebody could please promote me to captioner.
I thought I just did.
The panel, I was made a panelist. And I have to, when you go to your settings, if you, it'll say assign someone type.
Because I assigned the wrong person. Sorry, Winston.
That's okay, no problem. This is Diana.
Thank you, Diana. Oh, I assigned Winston. Sorry, Winston. Here you
Oh,
go,
okay, well,
Diana.
hey, if Winston wants to do my job, that's okay too.
You could try.
I'm okay just being the presenter for one item.
Okay,
Thank you.
terrific. Let me just give this a quick test.
That's right. Where did I show up? Search videos there. Where? Okay. No, I should. No, I'm not let dog. Now I'm gonna put all my stuff on. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Finally.
How you doing, John?
Good. How about you, Bob?
I'm okay. Well, it is officially 2 o'clock. I see you're on, Paul. Is there anybody else we're going to be waiting for? Or shall we begin?
Yeah, you're on, and John is on, and we're waiting for, we have about 20 participants right now. Let me see. Who else is on here?
You have 21 people.
Wow. That's more than we've ever fit in the room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but most of them are as consultants and
Oh, they're consultants.
yeah. Okay, 1, 2. All right, we have enough. Christina, you should be part of the panelist. Can you promote Christina to panelist? Okay, and I think I actually shared my link with some other people as well, Rebecca, because I'm sure they were not able to come in. So we'll just sort of, I guess, do a roll call potentially with the list of people. So let's see who's on. All right, and with that, Mr. Chair, can you see the agenda? That's
Yes, I can.
okay.
So let's open up. Well, thank you all. We intentionally postponed this, hoping that the nasty word COVID would subside and go away and we could have a meeting face to face. And eventually we threw in the towel and said, regrettably, we'll Zoom like everybody else in the world and have this video call in lieu of face to face meeting. And with that, we have clearly a good turnout today of about 25 people in all. I'm not going to do a roll call. I think we have the list. Paul, you can certainly put a list down for the minutes. But can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of our last meeting? John, you're on mute again.
Oh, there. I move to accept the minutes. Sorry about that.
Second.
All right,
Second.
thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then I guess for make things a little go smoothly, if you aren't talking, I would ask that you put your laptop on mute so it doesn't get distracted. And I will turn it over to Paul to introduce our first speaker on the 595 artillery.
Artillery connectivity study. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be introducing Mr. Chon Wong. He is the FDOT project manager for this project. This project essentially is a joint project with the Broward MPO. The project started with us, and we approached the DOT to do this project, specifically on the arterials that intersect 595. There were some congestion issues that our board members brought to us, and again, in partnership with the DOT, we started this project to see how we can alleviate some of the congestion around those arterials. And with that, I'll pass it to Mr. Chon Wong.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Chon Wong. I'm the FDOT project manager for the MPO funded study, the connectivity study along the I-595 corridor. You are already aware there exists a lot of chronic congestion, traffic congestion issues on the arterial streets along the I-595 corridor in central and western Broward County. As a result, Broward MPO has directed FDOT to perform a thorough study in the area to identify deficiencies and the problem areas, develop effective short-term and long-term solutions that can be implemented implementable and have the support from our local partners and stakeholders. The study area is about 2 mile wide band along the I-595 corridor between 136th Avenue and State Road 7. So last October, the department selected the RS&H team as our consultant to lead the study. I would like to take the opportunity this afternoon to introduce the team's project manager, Winston Harris, and also the deputy project manager, Lisa Dijkstra. They will give a brief presentation on what the study entails, its schedules, and also what the current study status is right now. And with that, I'll hand it over to Winston for the presentation.
Thank you, John. My name is Winston Harris. I am with RS&H. I'm the RS&H project manager. I also have with me Lisa Dijkstra, who is our deputy project manager for this project. As John said, this is a partnership between the MPO and FDOT. Got started with it last year, October. So we're about 10 months into the study now. Next slide, please, Lisa. Okay. Today we're just going to give a quick overview of the study. We want to cover, the study area. What are the primary goals and objectives of the study? We'll talk a little bit about the process, the scheduling for the project, some preliminary inputs that we have had, and what are the next steps as we move forward from here. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay. This graphic illustrates the study corridor that we're looking at. So we're looking at 595 from just west of 136th Avenue, east of I-75 interchange, to just east of State Road 7. The study corridors, they are highlighted in yellow. It's the north-south arterials are primarily concerned with. So it's 136th Avenue, Flamingo Road, Hiatus, Nabil, Pine Island, University, Davie, and US 441. So it's along those roadways, we're going approximately a mile to the north and a mile to the south of 595. State Road 84 is also included in the study. Although 595, is within the study area, and we're looking at connectivity to State Road 84, which ultimately connects to 595. 595 itself is not a part of your study. As you know, 595 was, improved with reversible express lanes a few years ago. Next slide, please. Okay, some of the primary goals. What drove the study was really congestion. So we're looking at how can we improve congestion or reduce congestion, I should say, along those north-south arterials and their connectivity to State Road 84 and 595. Because that's where most of the issues are going to be at, those connection points. It is a multimodal study, so we're looking at all modes. So it's autos, it's peds, it's bikes, and freight also, and transit. Some of the objectives we need to try to accomplish to get to that ultimate goal is identifying the deficiencies, of course. A lot of collaboration with the stakeholders, and that will continue throughout the entire length of the project, trying to get from the key stakeholders what are their issues and what kind of solutions we're looking at. And then trying to develop some kind of implementation plan, identifying projects that these improvements can fit into. Next slide, please, Lisa. Just a reminder that this is a high-level project. We're at that. This slide is showing the DOT's project development process. So we're right at the beginning there, the planning level, where it's preliminary, it's concept plans, and then identifying, projects that can move forward into later stages. So certainly there may be some smaller projects coming out of this, triple R stuff that can be quickly implemented, but a lot of the stuff would have to go through the full process, the PD&E stage, design stage, if right away is required, right away, and then construction. So we're right at that 30-foot level now with this study. Next slide, please. This next slide just outlines the process, the various stages that we're going to go through. We're in that first task one to your left there, where we're identifying the deficiencies, talking to a lot of people, identifying those deficiencies, then and doing a lot of field work, evaluating those deficiencies, looking at it in the future, what happens if we, if nothing is done, and what can we do to improve, reduce the congestion, improve safety, that will last through the design life. And then task 3, trying to find some kind of projects implementation. How are we going to try to implement these projects? Preparing some kind of implementation list and identifying funding sources for those projects. And then down the bottom there, you see outreach. Throughout the entire project, we're outreaching, including the FTAC here and other agencies, as you will see. Next slide. We're looking at a host of different type of mitigation strategies. So in addition to the traditional geometric type of improvements we're also looking at broad picture, maybe land use policies, multimodal aspects, the green area, there's a green area just to the north of 595. How can we improve that? And we're looking at technology too, ITS, TSMNO type strategies. And of course, we know that, for example, there's that truck stop, which, highly used just south of on State Road 7 there, just south of 595. That's one location where we know that has come up in the past as a concern for the freight industry, and the access to it has been an issue. So that certainly we can look at under this project too. Generally, how can we provide better access to that truck facility? And to the west, further to the east, we know there's several industrial areas where freight is important. Next slide, please. This schedule just kind of shows you the overall 2-year project. I said we started back in October. The gray block there kind of shows where we are, August 2020. Most of what we have been doing so far has been the outreach to various stakeholders and data collection, a lot of data collection to identify what's happening in the field. We have to be data driven by whatever we're doing. Those little green dots down the bottom show various mileposts in terms of deliverables that we have. The diamond maroon colors, those are meetings that we have with our project advisory committee that we'll talk about in a little while. And those stars are presentations that we intend to make to the MPO, because we definitely need to keep the MPO abreast. They are our close partners. We had one meeting with the MPO back in March, February, and we have another one planned coming up in October. All right, next slide, please. To talk preliminarily about some of the stakeholders that we know are deeply involved in the project. All those municipalities along the corridor, Town of Davie, Sunrise, Plantation, Fort Lauderdale, those are all key stakeholders that we have to be communicating with, and we have had discussions with them already. Broward County, to all of your divisions of Broward County, we have had talks with on the project. We met in February, as I said, with the MPO board. At that time, we also met with the Technical Advisory Committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee. And they gave us, some good insights as to, especially with respect to outreach, how we could improve the outreach for the project. And we took some of their advice, and we expanded our outreach to include an online survey, which you will also see. As I said, there's a project advisory committee. The project advisory committee is made up of representatives from all those key stakeholders that you see there listed from the cities and also Broward County. And of course, we do have Paul and other MPO folks sitting with us in our monthly meetings and helping to guide us. The purpose of that project advisory committee is trying to guide the project to make sure we deliver solutions that are appropriate. Next slide, please. Okay, just touch quickly on some of the issues that some of the stakeholders have pointed out to us in these early days. Traffic operation issues, of course, there are several, primarily at the interchanges that they pointed out. A lot of safety issues. There are a lot of high crash locations along the corridor. Connectivity, especially at the interchanges where those north-south arterials meet State Road 84 and connect to 595 eventually. And also that, connectivity with respect to the Greenway. And the outreach areas, how can we improve our outreach for the project? Next slide, please. Continuing on this just a little bit. Freight, that has come up, especially in particular, as I said, with regards to that truck stop that's on State Road 7 just south of 95. The Greenway is a big part of this study. Very heavily used, ped bikes, and they've been very vocal in terms of trying to improve their connectivity and their safety. Sidewalks and of course transit are all part of the study. So this is truly a multimodal study looking at every mode, and freight is an important part of that mode too. Next slide, please. I would say one of the things that we did was we had a online survey where the general public could provide their comments. That ran for about 6 weeks from July through to August 10. We had a very good response. The MPO helped us to advertise this survey. This graphic sort of illustrates pointers that folks left on the map and left comments. We're going through those comments now, but as you can see on that graphic on the right, most of the issues that folks raised were related to autos, and next up was safety. But by far, most of the issues raised there were related to congestion and car and automobile movements. So we're going through those now in detail, and we feel pretty good about the responses that we got here, and hopefully we can address a lot of these in developing our solutions. Next slide, please. Okay, so our next steps in the project will, of course, will through to the rest of August here, we're finished up our 2040, identifying those deficiencies in our design year 2045. We're wrapping up that now. By the end of this month, that document will be ready. And I should also mention, one of the things we're trying to do is to get our documents published on the MPO website. We do have a project website. I should mention that as part of our public involvement. So, and hopefully we can get these posted on the MPO website, or at least that's our current plan. Through August, through September, through the end of September, we'll be summarizing the results of that public survey that we just showed you. Then we'll be coming back to the MPO board around October-ish, end of October, to give them an update where we are with the project and the deficiencies we have found, and some of the solutions we're beginning to formulate. Developing those mitigation measures, that's of course the heart of the project. That will take us through spring of next year, where we're developing concepts, developing ideas, and trying to get everyone to try participate and help us so that we can address those deficiencies in the best possible way and try to find funding sources for the projects that will come out of it. Okay, that was our quick overview of the project. Certainly, we can take any questions. Contact information here for follow-up. Chan Wong, the DOT project manager, and Claudia Olarte, she is the FDOT's deputy project manager on it. So with that, any questions you may have, we can try to answer. We probably have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, I have one. It's John Dahm here. Is this strictly access to and from 595, or is this also including the perimeter areas accessing State Road 84 from the sides?
Okay, right. And Lisa, if you can move up to the project area side, the map side. So we're looking at the primary focus is the north-south arterials that cross 595 and State Road 84 and the connectivity to State Road 84. So we are including, so we're looking at intersections too that are winning about a mile to the north and a mile to the south, because all the issues don't occur just at the interchange. The interchange is a big part of it, but certainly, there's influence further north and further south. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, a lot of focus is given to the 595 truck stop, just because it's obvious. There's
Yeah.
a number of industrial projects that are underway that are more significant
Right.
in terms of their traffic that they'll generate all day long back and forth. One of them is a big project by Bridge Development that's got a very peculiar access to it. It sits on the southwest corner of the Florida Turnpike and 595. That'll be close to 1 million square feet with the only access off of Davie Road coming through a roundabout that's shared with bicycles, residents, everything from dump trucks to 18-wheelers. So you might want to definitely look at them as stakeholders. There's other possibilities. That's a lake that's being filled or reclaimed by the Foreman Group and a few others. So that'll be quite a bit of freight traffic. Another one is a large project underway with Prologis, used to be Liberty Property. That'll be in the corner of US 441 and 595 in the old sludge plant, directly between the landfill and the Broward incinerator. That'll generate also a significant amount of truck traffic. Additionally, there's some redevelopment taking place on the west side of 441. That'll be in that area off Burris Road that leads to the truck stop. So I think what we'll be seeing is a lot more of that. As you're planning roadways, you want to look a little more into the future than just what's there right now and what's underway. There's a lot of junkyards in there that'll be reclaimed. There's quite a bit, there's 2 large trailer parks. That'll all be industrial.
Yeah. Well,
just something to look at for your stakeholders.
Yep. And definitely, and that's the kind of input that certainly we're looking for, especially from this group. Yeah, we know in general that eastern end of the corridor, say east of Florida Turnpike, very industrial. East and to the south, a lot happening in that area in terms of industry and freight movement. And so I guess that entire area, if this project can come up with something to better improve access in that area, certainly. But thanks for those specific locations that you just noted.
Yeah.
I think we have them down here, but if we need any clarification, certainly we'll follow up with you.
Sure, by all means.
Mr. Chair, I just want to come in here real quick and do a little quick housekeeping. All of the people that are listed as me, I'm going to unmute you and I will please ask you to identify yourself correctly. So if you are unmuted right now, can you please identify yourself?
Hi, Dr. Natasha Yassin, Port Everglades.
Awesome. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Doctor, sorry. Okay. Okay, I've unmuted another person. Can you please identify yourself?
The gentleman with the nice white mustache on the camera.
Yeah, Michael Silver.
Michael Silver. Okay, thank you.
And Okay, I've unmuted another person. Can you please identify yourself?
This person is on the phone.
Okay. Yes.
Name? Yes. Anyone there?
Hello?
Yes, Victoria Williams, Turnpike.
All right.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
And did I get everybody? Okay, I think that's it. Mr. Chair, next presentation will be the US 27 grade separation study, and it will be done by Mr. Ron Kariva?
You got it, Kariva.
Kariva, all right, awesome. And whenever you're ready to share your screen, please feel free.
Thank you, Paul. One moment, I'm pulling it up to share now. Okay, I'm hoping that's visible now at this point. I think I did it right.
Yeah.
This is US 27 grade separation feasibility study. FDOT took a look at this US 27 corridor over about the past 6 months, and I'm not the project manager for it or study manager. I'm filling in for one of my staff. She's out ill and couldn't make the presentation. I'll do the best that I can, and if there's any questions at the end that I can't answer, I'll make sure I get answers for you, but I'll do what I can do through here. As Paul said, my name's Ron Kariva. I work in District 4 in the Planning and Environmental Management Office, and I'm also the Strategic Intermodal System Coordinator for District 4, also called SIS. So you may have seen my name around in relationship to that as well. And it's not going. Oop, there we go. Okay. So quickly, just to go over the presentation, what I'm going to cover, this will be pretty quick. I'm trying to not go into too many specific details that are unrelated to freight, but the presentation has a lot of other information in it. Talk about the study background, the schedule, where we're at, what coordination's been done, traffic demand forecasting. I'll touch briefly on that, the different concepts that we looked at, and also briefly touch a resiliency analysis, comparison of the concepts, the costs for the construction of the concepts, and any recommendations that may have come out. I'll start with the background. US 27, we're looking at from the limits of Pembroke Road on the south end to around Griffin Road on the north side. The area has been identified in the past as needing some study and evaluation to keep the corridor operating efficiently for all modes. This is also a SIS facility, which we are concerned with for regional trips, as well as interregional trips across the state. So the interest at this, within these limits, even though they're a very small area of the corridor, is a part of a larger interest of the state of Florida and the strategic intermodal system. The main focus of looking at these locations where these intersections within Broward County have some growth in the area, and they are currently at grade, and part of some past recommendations of the study of this area have been to look at possible options to separate the grade and whatnot. One thing I'll also point out before we go farther is that there is rail preservation for a future rail corridor here. We do not have any plans for a rail corridor as of this time to construct, but that preservation thought is there, and it's still being thought of as we move forward. And really, this is kind of a dust off of a previous study to further go into details a little heavier on what we could do just specifically in this area from a longer limit study. Looked about east and west a little bit, half a mile to the west, there's natural areas over there. And then to the east, about a mile. And like I said, we looked at grade separation. Part of also is truck only lanes and safety related. But again, looking at preserving the corridor for all modes. So technically the study part and the analysis is complete at this time. This started back in November of the previous year with kickoff, document reviews, data collection out there, getting various data from the types of vehicles that are traveling, as well as growth in the area, types of industry, businesses, residencies, things like that. Traffic forecasting was done. Operational analysis was completed. They started developing concepts back in February-ish, and that's also been completed. And we looked a little bit at resiliency as well. It's something the department's been starting to consider, especially for the SIS facilities in the long term, making sure that these corridors can hold up if, due to changes related to climate change and other unknowns. And also the estimates of the cost. The report is kind of ongoing. It's not finalized at this time, but it's, from the analysis standpoint, this is generally completed. Some coordination that was, well, there was quite a bit of coordination done, but this slide is just showing various entities the department coordinated with: City of Miramar, Pembroke Pines, Town of Southwest Ranches, City of Weston, Broward County, Broward MPO, South Florida Water Management District, Florida Department of Transportation, some other districts. As I said, this road's a regional, interregional facility, so we also were coordinating with other districts that abut us to the north and south. I won't go too much into the traffic, but this point of this slide was to show the existing traffic on the left-hand side and what we expect the traffic to be in the future on the right-hand side, broken down by intersection. This is not showing directly the corridor traffic on US 27. You could probably calculate that from looking at this, but in general, it's trying to just break down the volumes at the intersections by each of the types of movements. I'm not going to go into all the volumes, but those were the 5 specific intersections we're looking at. And there's also one potential future intersection for an extension that I believe is planned, but hasn't been built at this time. Okay, so alternative concepts. We had 3 concepts we looked at, and also a no build, as if we did nothing. One of the concepts was adding frontage road system to the existing configuration. This would not include any grade separation, so it's almost like building a road next to a road. Another alternative of grade separation, where it was going to keep a frontage road system, but also grade separating the interchange or the intersections. That way, the through traffic on US 27 would not have to conflict with the traffic on the moving through the intersections. And the third one was pretty much the same thing as the second one, except the lanes would only be for trucks, as opposed to general purpose lanes that would be used by trucks and vehicles. It's just truck only lanes. And all of these include a frontage road. And the goal for all of these was to hope that the local trips would use the frontal system as much as possible, and helping increase the throughput for the mainline system for any vehicles that are traveling on a larger distance. All of these include some turn lane improvements as well at each of the intersections, regardless of whether it's grade separated or not. Pedestrian features, bicycle features, and again, preserving for a rail corridor is included with all of these. There's also considerations in regards to the rest area north of Griffin Road for the trucks, and other potential things were looked in. But a lot of this was not just to look at grade separation. We're also looking at making the signalizations more efficient, or using newer technology to get the most out of what's out there as far as for the signalized portions. Okay. Alternative 1, this is just a brief or an aerial type shot from a computer rendering. If you see the top left corner, you're looking northwest from this picture. The frontage road is to the east, and then on the western side is the main line of US 27. And you can see the rail corridor in there, and then the canal to the west. So the goal is just to kind of show how this would lay out and what they were looking at when it came to the frontage road. The 4 pictures, the rest of them are all the same intersection, same alternative, just different viewpoints. the top down view from the bottom right corner kind of gives you a pretty good idea of the full overall intersection and how it may look and interact. Alternative 2, this is a grade separation, same intersection, different alternative. Actually, I'm sorry, yeah, same intersection, different alternative. You can see the traffic signal here. So we still have a frontage road system in place, but the mainline traffic is separated from the intersection. So these improvements also would include pedestrian improvements, just like the previous one, and maintaining access for the local trips by pulling the mainline traffic out. The view on the bottom left can give you an idea of the elevated lane going through there, I guess, and whatnot. And like I said, all of the alternatives keep the rail corridor preserved in place. And then alternative 3 gonna be very similar to alternative 2, except the truck only lanes. It's just 1 lane in each direction as opposed to 2 on the north-south. But in this case, needing a little more capacity on the frontage road system to handle the other long distance trips that aren't able to use the truck lanes, bypassing the intersection. In this case, we're really just saying, hey, trucks are bypassing the traffic and everybody else is still going through the normal flow. So very similar in the sense of geometry, but different use. So I'm not going to go too detailed on these because it's the traffic for each one of them. All the alternatives improve the existing operations out there. Of course, the overall operations improves with alternative 2 because we're moving the throughput through volumes out of the intersections, and it is going to have the best overall for all users. And of course, adding the truck only lanes for alternative 3 is going to be more beneficial overall, but it definitely helps trucks more. There's still a little bit overall lower level of service than what alternative 2 can do, since it's only specific vehicles that are actually going to be able to separate or not go through the intersections. Just one thing of note, the intersections of Johnson Street and Sheridan Street in 2045, which is what these turning movements are showing, what we believe will happen. Those intersections do not meet our standards in 2045 for if we don't do anything out there. So those 2 are the only ones we predicted to fail by 2045, but the level of service is going to decrease for all of them. And all the alternatives that we're presenting today don't leave failing level of service per se at any of the locations. But like I said, some do better than the others. I'll briefly touch on resiliency. I'm not an expert in resiliency. We are trying to look at just predicting, I guess, impacts based on different categories: storm surge, sea level rise, flooding, evacuation, and things like that. The no build obviously leaves things the way that it is, and there is some minor vulnerabilities today, but they're not very high to begin with. But as you can see, once you get into alternatives 2 and 3, reducing those impacts for sure in regards to flood, as well as things impacted directly from sea level rise. And it also really helps evacuation once we have those grade separated lanes in, unlike doing a no build for whatnot. And as far as the groundwater elevation, it also helps as well as that groundwater may come up in the future. It would require reconstructing of the road. So you're going to see some improvements there where alternative 1, even though it does improve on the overall traffic, it's not going to help with something like that because we're using the existing footprint and the existing roadway. Just a quick rundown of the 3. Like I said before, failing intersections by 2045 for operations. Alternative 1's a little bit lower and cost quite a bit lower actually. Less impacts on the environmental conditions because we're not doing as much out there per se in scope wise. But safety concerns continue to linger around. There's high volumes of trucks out there today. We expect that to continue in the future. And as the traffic volumes go up, those intersections are going to get more congested. Alternative 2, a little more expensive than, well, let me rephrase that, much more expensive than alternative 1, A little more impacts to the environment, but greatly overall effect on traffic operations. And that one, again, just to remind you, is the grade separation without the dedicated truck lanes. And I need to verify this bullet where it says alternative 3 is the most expensive. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it's very similar in cost to alternative 2. And again, this is just for truck only lanes, and impacts are going to be similar to alternative 2, but again, the overall traffic won't be quite as improved. And yeah, you can see here on the next slide. So I think that bullet was a mistake. I'm sorry. Alternative 1, we estimated around 65 million. Alternative 2, 170 million. Alternative 3, 141 million. We didn't put any estimates in here for the rail corridor. This is just for constructing what the alternatives we looked at, again, leaving space for the rail corridor. None of the alternatives have impacts to right of way, we don't believe at this time. And we're not accounting for any extra things we might do related to resiliency. We did summarize the resiliency, but we haven't, there's no recommendations right now, any specific things that could be done or how costs could increase because of those things. Also, this is just within our limits for the truck only lanes. And we kind of coordinated with other counties on this, and there are plans in the long term, and we can talk about that if you have any questions, but for this whole corridor to be reevaluated all the way from, in our district, from the Miami-Dade line to Palm Beach County, the Hendry line out there. And this does not incorporate any of that in this study. From the recommendations from the study, perform a PD&E study. So this is a study before a study. How great. Anyhow, we could go into more detail on each of the alternatives or on some chosen alternatives in a PD&E study. So recommend a final corridor improvement for this area. Continue to coordinate with Traffic Operations Office, which is internal to FDOT, to try to continue to work on enhancing safety within the area in the short term, regardless of if any or what alternatives are chosen. And there are some recommendations, and these came up in coordination comments, to extend the study all the way to the I-75 interchange. So that's also a recommendation from this, to look north of Griffin Road. I don't believe there's any signalized intersections in between the two, but right now this does not look at any interactions with I-75. And continue to actively coordinate with the municipalities on corridor. I think Pembroke Road, as I had mentioned before, is planned extension. It's not extended yet, but we know the project's coming, and keep doing that to make sure we stay on top of the changes in the area. And like I said, this is from a feasibility study, so it's still kind of a ways out per se. We're looking very long term. We're required to do this from the standpoint of the SIS. We have to update our studies every so often to make sure that we're looking at these corridors that the state has deemed important, I guess, say above some of the other ones. So this is part of that process. But from the recommendation side for the consultant, just real briefly, I'll wrap up. We've decided that the consultant had finished the task that we gave them, but we've decided to go back to them to do a little bit more, and we're working on executing a task for that. We're going to have them do a little more detailed analysis on comparing the alternatives to get more of a benefit to cost type alternative analysis, to maybe pull out one specific alternative that we might be recommending. So there'll probably be a little more coordination with this, and a little more analysis, and a little more update to the study. But other than that, it's pretty much finalized. The district has identified the area as needing improvements in our cost feasible plan for the strategic intermodal system out around the 2031 to 2035 time band. That plan has been in process of being updated, and it's been put on hold. So until we finish that, we won't know exactly when and where we can afford to put a project, at least to do continued study for this. But as the SIS coordinator, I'm aware of the need, and I will be working with management to schedule and fund with the state future study, probably most likely a PD&E study that would either compare this alternative or an alternative from this or multiple alternatives from this against perhaps another alternative that would come up during the study. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that, even though it wasn't part of the presentation, that they're what we may be looking for in the future. I can take any questions. Also, you can see on the screen, you can reach out to Malou Rojas as well. She is the project manager. She's, like I said, out right now, but you can anytime reach out to her as well to answer questions, but you could also email me or ask them now, and I'll do the best that I can.
Real quick, anyone who wants to ask a question, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little hand. If you click on the hand, you'll raise your hand and then we'll know that you would like to ask a question. So
I don't have a hand.
okay, well, sounds like John wants to ask a question. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I can't go without him. A couple of questions.
Yes.
I like that this is forward looking, for sure. I'm a person that keeps up with the automated, autonomous, shared electric, et cetera, vehicle studies, and kind of work on a number of state committees on that. I know Starsky's running some trucks that they're experimenting with out of Plantation on the 27 corridor. I think certainly that your idea of a grade separation and the ability to go through traffic on the main line is really critical in the future. I think it's going to be critical for trucks coming out of Miami-Dade, out of Port Miami, connecting with the couple of new developments taking place right on Highway 27 there, and certainly for platooning. So I think it adds some weight to your great plans to plan for the future on this thing. A couple of things to keep in mind. There's an enormous amount of industrial development and industrial use taking place just below the county line into Miami-Dade County with the Dream Mall, which of course is kind of up and down, but the Graham companies have a project almost the same size that's a little further off the radar. Then of course there's 8 million square feet for the Flagler's building of industrial. A lot of that is going to use Highway 27. The truckers just like it. There's no tolls, and it gets them kind of into the middle of the state, which you probably know. I think keep in mind that there's a few projects that are underway that don't show up on maps. And that's one of them, that 8 million square feet that's under construction right at the Okeechobee Road and kind of the in between the Heft and I-75. As it continues up, there's a project that'll be started pretty soon, 61 acres of industrial right there east of US 27 off of Sheridan Street. Broward County has it up for bid on an unsolicited basis. That'll probably have about 1 million square feet or more. I would guess 1.5 million of industrial space. That'll all head out Highway 27. So it's a lot more traffic than it looks like it is. There's a lot of talk about taking the Opelika Airport west and putting truck stop there. That's just below the Dade-Broward line. So I think I would really like to put my 2 cents in to encourage the extension of this study down to the Miami-Dade line, and then also to run it up to US 20 to I-75, because Air Glades is a fairly significant project that hasn't really gotten underway. That'll be taking place in Clewiston, running this, the US 27 corridor right up to the lake there for an inland port and a perishables airport.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, one more thing. You might want to think about putting a real estate person on your study in the future. Just to let you know, not only what's planned, what's underway, but what's planned, what's in the pipeline, and what's possible. One thing I've noticed, a number of well-intentioned engineers and other folks forget is that just because a project is agriculturally zoned or general use zone or not even zoned for anything realistic doesn't mean a couple of bucks and some good attorneys won't get you what you want. And most developers know that. So all the property that is contiguous to this that's not in the floodplain of the South Florida Water Management District is really up for grabs. Thanks.
Interesting point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Anyone? All right. So I guess we can do our next presentation. And,
Thank you. And thank you too, Paul.
Thank
yeah,
you.
well, thank you very much, man. We'll be seeing more of you in the future, I have a feeling.
For sure.
Our next presentation is the MPO Freight Outreach. Now, this is something that's near and dear to the MPO. It's essentially what we have been cooking up as far as our freight outreach to the public. And really, we have a great staff here at the MPO that's doing public outreach. One of the, superstars that we have here is Anthea Thomas, and she's leading this effort, and she has a great group of consultants working with her. So yeah, they're going to show you what the MPO has been up to and planning to do.
Thank you, Paul. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Anthea Thomas. I'm the Public Outreach Manager for the Broward MPO. And as Paul mentioned, we are excited to present our plan for freight outreach to you guys this afternoon. We talked a little bit about stakeholders in the last presentation, so I got really excited about that because we work with stakeholders every day. And so we kind of wanted to identify some of that to you guys and just let you know kind of what the plan is. So with me this afternoon, I have Daniel Crotty from White House Group. I have Jessica Smith from HDR, and you all, of course, know Autumn Young from DOT District 4. She will be part of this presentation as well. Next slide. So just wanted to show you an agenda kind of the layout of what we're going to be talking to you guys about today. Next slide. And so we're looking to share some of the outreach efforts with you to make sure those who live, work, and play in Broward know the importance of freight and how it is moving goods throughout our region. Because a lot of people, they see a package on their doorstep, but they don't entirely know that the truck they cut off to get home was bringing the package to them. So, we're trying to make that connection between the public and also freight and all the other forms of freight. So in addition to being the public outreach manager for the MPO, I'm also the PM for the Speak Up Broward project. This is the MPO's public online platform. So Speak Up Broward handles a lot of tough outreach challenges. And so we refer to these challenges as hot topics. And one of those things is freight planning. So Speak Up Broward really informs the public by raising awareness for transportation through different methods such as e-town halls. You can have online events, which is what we've been doing a lot of lately because we're in times of COVID. Social media, community events and workshops were really popular before, we were not doing in-person outreach, and an ambassador program. So one of the other things that the Speak Up Broward program does is collaborate with elected officials, the public, and of course, committees like yourself on freight outreach and other types of outreach. Next slide, please. So of course, I would not be the social media manager if I did not ask you guys to follow us on social media. So you can pick your poison. We've given you guys each of the different social media channels that we manage. And each one of those different channels have content on projects, has content on public documents and products from the MPO, programs that the MPO heads up or programs that the MPO is working on. For example, you heard earlier from Winston and Chan about the arterial study along 595. We're also helping them with that, as they mentioned. Events that the MPO puts on, other news from the MPO, and interesting reads about the hot topics that I mentioned earlier. One of the programs that has experienced growth and success from Speak Up Broward has been the MPO's Complete Streets program. And we're hoping to replicate that success with freight. The Complete Streets went through a Better Streets, Better Broward, Better Life rebranding. So we're looking to do something similar with freight. So why are we doing this? Why should we go out and do freight outreach? Well, the hook is that you can help, how can we help you raise awareness? And this is a topic that has come up in the FTAC meeting before. And so we may have an answer that we would like for you to influence. Now, if you go back in the time machine, April 2017, the FTAC took a survey and identified critical action items. And the second most important action item that you guys identified behind freight opportunities to improve job growth in our region was to develop educational materials for both elected officials and for stakeholders. So this is kind of looking at that and making sure that we can deliver on what you guys requested. So one of the programs that has experienced a lot of growth, again, has been the Complete Streets program, and we are looking to replicate that success. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Daniel.
Thanks, Anthea. Okay, so because of these questions, and they keep coming up, how could we promote freight like we promote other issues and transportation issues, and how can we look at it to where we raise public awareness? That's, as Anthea touched on, that's something that Speak Up Broward can help the FTAC with. And so I want to talk a little bit about the role of the FTAC and what it is that you guys have helped the MPO do in the past. So just a quick overview, the role of the FTAC is to basically just provide input, review MPO core products, and recommend actions. It's over the past 3 years, the FTAC has reviewed a lot of the Broward MPO's plans and efforts. Some examples that come to my mind, we had Peter come often to talk about the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We had the Complete Streets Master Plan come up, and we wanted to incorporate freight into that. Projects from the penny transportation surtax came up. The FTAC helped change the critical urban freight corridor designation on US 27. We had Southwest 10th Street come in, and there were various infogrant submissions that you reviewed. And lastly, the MPOAC's Freight Priorities Program, which is the state program where you all endorsed 3 projects that the MPO put forth. So the FTAC has been very involved in accomplishing its role. And so what we're hoping to do today is to kind of combine this sort of role with the Speak Up Broward effort. And one of the products that you may have not taken a look at, and maybe you have, is the public participation plan, which is on their website. And under the existing strategy section within the methods of achieving best public participation, the FTAC is mentioned as one of the MPO's key advisory committees. So you are already inherently involved in the plan. You just might not have known so. And so this is where we're kind of trying to link up these 2 efforts. So one of the purposes of Speak Up Broward, of course, is to implement the public participation plan by expanding outreach. And what better way to do that than to tie the FTAC and its input into those outreach efforts? So there's a wealth of knowledge and expertise on the FTAC, and I'll just briefly go over who the stakeholders are. You may recognize yourself mentioned here. You may represent a private railroad or a port terminal or an economic development group. In the past, we've also considered expanding this list to several other groups like shipping companies, truck companies, warehouses, FL, airport, truck parking providers. And that's one of the reasons why outreach is so important, is so that we can get as many critical voices and expertise to influence this outreach. Apart from that, we also have the public sector. We have advisors from FDOT that often come. We have had in the past Florida Highway Administration, Turnpike Enterprise, Port Everglades Association, the South Florida Regional Planning Council. So there are many people who are involved that we can definitely use their voice to help provide input and recommend actions. Then, of course, you also have friends of the committee. Some of you may remember some of our visits to FAU. We did do some work with the universities there, Dr. Kaiser. We also have other interested members of the public from time to time, and then, of course, your consultants. So because of all this knowledge, we need your help, and we would like to know what you think. You're crucial to freight outreach. because we have a lot of outreach efforts going on that we're going to talk about. And we want you to review some of the actions that we're recommending to engage new stakeholders. And ultimately, this will all help build champions throughout your network so that the benefits for the freight community and the benefits of the MPO can be heard and understood by all. So moving forward, let's talk about what has been done regarding freight outreach so far. So as of right now, the MPO has this new plan. It's a Freight Outreach Action Plan, and it's phase 1. It serves as a framework that complements ongoing efforts for the Speak Up Broward program. It also complements efforts from the prior Southeast Florida Regional Freight Plan and FDOT's new Freight Mobility Trade Plan. And it essentially will be a comprehensive approach to freight education and engagement. The story that the MPO wants to tell with this is basically the same story, but it's going to be to different audiences. But with different audiences, different messages have to be told. So we've got a couple more items talking about that later on. But essentially our key stakeholders at the MPO are the board members, the staff, and then of course the public. So we want to first target them so that they can understand the value of freight and what it brings to their everyday lives and to their communities that they represent. By doing so, we want to create this bridge with new partners and extend the message of the FTAC, your message, over time. So inside the Freight Action Plan, there are 5 key activities which we will go through. First, starting with Speak Up Broward for Freight, which is this nexus that we're trying to build here. We're going to also talk about branding, marketing, and messaging, Freight 101, freight field visits, and then also a regional freight academy. So we'll talk about those in the following slides. I would like for you, as we kind of go through this, to write down your thoughts on each of these. Please think about, one, what is working, and 2, what might we be missing, and then 3, what should we consider that we might not have already. And at the end, we can talk about it briefly, or if you decide to, you could mention it as we're talking about it. So feel free to interrupt. But with that, I'm going to pass it back to Anthea, and she'll talk about the first activity here, Speak Up Broward for Freight.
Excellent. So in Speak Up Broward for Freight, we're planning the continuation of the Speak Up Broward online events with a new series, emphasizing freight movement. This brings together local and regional officials, and it also brings together industry experts like yourselves and business leaders along with the community. There will be an interactive, informative, virtual experience for community engagement. So just think about it, and you can write it down. What freight-related topics should we cover in our online event series? We would love to incorporate that. The other thing I would love to throw out there is, I know that you guys know a lot of stakeholders. Who often gets left behind? We would love to know that from you guys as well. Next slide, please. So one of the second thing that I believe was on the list was the effort to rebrand freight in a way that the public will notice that all these goods are moving all around them. This logo, it was developed to show the different methods that are used to bring goods to your doorstep and to local stores and to move them around Broward. So notice that each mode is coming from all over the world directly towards you. Moving goods for a stronger economy was the tagline we came up with, because nobody can argue against a strong economy, especially in times of COVID. So now that we have the brand, online and printed material will be created and distributed to the public electronically for now. And once we're able to bring them physically out to the public, we'll do so, or we can mail them out to partners so that you guys can have them as well. So now I'm going to transition over to Jessica Smith, who will speak about the freight messaging guide.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us today. This has been a really fun project because freight just kind of trucks along in the background, pun intended. So if you go on to the next slide, this freight messaging guide, we've done these for a couple of things at Broward, and that's to help give folks like yourselves who are advocates and champions for this hot topic a unified voice for what needs to be out there and what needs to be elevated in awareness. So with this message guide, this is another thing that we really need your feedback on, and it's in a draft form now, but it's something that if Anthea would like to, she can share with you more details. It identifies the tools and resources that can be used to really show the public what that value of freight is. And Danny, you can just go ahead and pull up all these bullets. It's a lot of text on a slide, but it's mostly to help you all know what's in that messaging guide. You know, we really want to look at who are those champions and how can we gather more champions in both the private and public sector pieces of freight movement, and then also just how to get rid of those kind of negative connotations and misconceptions about freight. There's almost very little that we can't go ahead and talk about and really show that it's an economic benefit to everyone. And if we pulled back up, Daniel, if I could trouble you to go back to that branding and marketing slide, one of the things that the message is it's both visual and it's spoken or written words in a message. So that's why the branding ties together this idea of moving goods for a stronger economy. We really wanted to ask you all about that concept because that is a focus and a positive focus for freight that the general public can usually understand, moving your economy and knowing that when Amazon packages are delivered to their door, that is a piece of the economy that they have given a little bit to help move things. And then all the jobs and all of the labor that's behind that little package and what it ends up doing for their community as a whole. So you can go on back through the message guide. So that message guide, second slide through, Daniel, I'm ready for. So there's a couple of things that it does. That message guide is meant for specific audience messaging and also to come from a specific stakeholder or champion. So the specific messages are going to be like, for example, if Mr. Ledoux has a message he wants to bring from his side of the conversation and he wants to talk to the community or the general public, there'd be a message guide in there. And that's why it's so important for those of you on this committee to take a look at this and see if we're getting it right? Anthea and I are not freight experts. We're communicators. Oh, that's a funny joke. Yeah, funny joke. But you guys are. What we are good at is translators. We're your interpreters. So whether you're talking to the community, policy decision makers, such as your board, advisors like you all, or professionals in the industry, we need to make sure that that messaging is right so that we don't lose them when we start talking to them. The last thing we want to do is waste the time of people in the industry by telling them something that they already know or is not helpful to them. And we need you guys to help guide what that is. And then there's those key messages outlined for each of those audiences, like I said, to just communicate and make sure that that the benefits of freight and we're using freight in a broad term, whether that's moving freight or planning for freight or designing for freight. We want to make sure that we're having that conversation in a way that's really, really helpful and really using their time wisely at the end of the day so that we can, we being you guys, the advisors and the decision and the policymakers, you guys can go out there and improve freight for the whole region and for the state, for the economy. All right, if you just want to move on. Anthea, I'd really like you to chat about what we've done here.
Yeah, so one of the educational tools that have been really effective for the agency has been to put together videos. So we actually put together this video, The Magic of Freight. And this is our first public outreach video promoting freight awareness. It's kind of a teaser to motivate folks to join the freight conversation during our September Speak Up Broward online event. This is the world premiere of this video, as it has not been seen by anybody outside of our organization. And so with that, Daniel, you can hit play.
We take it for granted, but our lives are dependent on freight. The items we consume daily come to us by air, sea, truck, and rail. Freight keeps the global economy thriving, provides millions of jobs, grows businesses, and helps families enjoy a standard of living. The magic of freight, keeping our economy strong. This message is brought to you by the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization.
All right. So that is our video. And from here, I'm going to pass it to Daniel to talk about the freight field trips.
And if I could interject really quickly, Daniel, while you get set up. Daniel, would you mind popping back to slide 20? Let's just go ahead and bring everybody back to what we're doing. We're moving pretty quickly for you guys. So we've just talked to you about Speak Up Broward and what Speak Up Broward's role is, really that interpreter to communicate about planning outreach. And then also we've talked about the branding, marketing, messaging. We showed you a little piece of a video clip. And Freight 101 is that messaging guide. And now we're going to chat about two final pieces of that action plan that we hope will continue to elevate, but in a more detailed way, have that communication and have that outreach in freight. And these two, and you can go ahead, Daniel, to your section, but number 4 and 5, the freight field trips and the freight academy are two things that are really labor intensive. They're also very, very much advisor, specialty, technical intensive. And this is really something where we would like you guys to have a bigger discussion about. All right, Daniel, thank you.
All right. I know we're throwing a lot at you guys, but as Jess was saying, these are the last two items as part of the outreach efforts. So the freight field visits is actually an activity that was inspired by previous adventures of the FTAC. We wanted to expand this experience to our MPO board members because there's no better way to really explain the value of freight than to just show them freight. So what we will really want to bring to them is an educational opportunity to explore the freight systems in our region with the goal of understanding the challenges of moving freight on a daily basis. Here are just a few examples of what we've done in the past here. Some of you may recall that Mr. Ledoux and Dr. Yacente were kind enough to host the FTAC meetings at their respective facilities to show us what happens there. And on the left-hand side are a couple of snapshots from the FEC's Fort Lauderdale Rail Yard, which is located between FLL and Port Everglades. And then on the right-hand side are a couple of shots from the Port Everglades Terminal 25, which is where the Royal Caribbean ships come out of. And so we wanted to hear what you think about what it would take to support this kind of an effort, bringing some of our MPO board members out there so that they can learn about these things and bring freight to the forefront in their own communities. So that way we have projects that support freight and we have communities that are supportive of freight. And is that something that we might be open to again post-COVID, or perhaps maybe a virtual tour from time to time? So those are just some questions to think about. Last activity is the Regional Freight Academy. We've seen some examples around the country, but one of the ones that we really liked was the Eastern Transportation Coalition's Freight Academy. So we might use that, or there are plans to use that as the template. Here's just some pictures from their website. And really it's geared towards mid-level planners or transportation experts that are from the public sector. And they go out and they basically learn about freight. And they can actually recruit people from all over the country to be a part of this academy. So what we're sort of thinking for this one, for the one in Broward, is participants would be transportation professionals from our agencies and partner agencies who have existing or future responsibilities with freight-related planning and decision-making. And so the goal would be to just expand the pool of professionals that can help advance freight projects on a local and state and national level. The curriculum would be developed by FDOT, or they would lead the development of the curriculum, and it will teach participants about freight that is often skipped in school and many other professional development resources. So upon completion of the Freight Academy, it's our hope that participants will be able to describe factors and components that are integral to the freight system. They'll be able to discern recent and future freight trends impacting the transportation system. They can demonstrate their knowledge of technical tools and of freight movement and operations, and they'll be able to effectively advocate the importance of freight to their own agencies and feel confident in doing so. In addition, participants will also have the opportunity to develop relationships with peers from other jurisdictions and meet public and private sector leaders from the industry and build teamwork and leadership. Now, I know Autumn's on the call and she's been integral to this. Is there anything that you wanted to add to the Freight Academy effort, since FDOT will be playing a major role in it?
Sure. First, I'd just like to commend the MPO. I hope the board members understand that this is one of the first times within the entire country that an MPO has led such a comprehensive effort. They're really taking outreach and education for the public and their board members extremely seriously. So we're so glad to see it. And you can tell just from how professional everything has been done so far, they're the right organization to be leading and setting the standard for other MPOs. So, great job, guys. We're very happy to see it. Paul and Anthea, especially, thank you for your support. In terms of the Freight Academy, what we want to do is bring that local flavor. I was very lucky to attend about 7 days up in New Jersey, learning about freight, visiting the field, and Daniel said it best, there's really just no way to create advocates other than to just show them. And what better way to create local advocates than to show them the facilities. And our FTAC members, all of you are essential in helping us create that story and really helping everyone understand why these projects are important, and also how we can incorporate more balance in the other types of projects that may not be, labeled freight. They may not be a port project adopted in the MTP, but how does it consider freight movement? So the Regional Freight Academy will be working with the MPO and taking their leadership on how to translate things effectively. Obviously, you can see through these presentations and all their other ones, they're the right people to tell us how to really make educational material engaging and worthwhile and long lasting. And I'll be talking about that a little bit more in the future. But again, if you have thoughts and ideas, or if you would be willing to support us in making sure that, especially these last two activities, are successful, maybe perhaps telling your story, or if you know somebody who's a great public speaker or likes to tell stories, who are they? We want to talk to them.
Great. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Anthea for next steps. Thank you so much, Autumn.
Thanks, Autumn. She's been with us every step of the way, so it's been really great working with her on this project. And one of the things I did want to tell you guys is, though it's my first time coming before you guys as a board, it won't be my last. I'm going to be coming by more frequently to get some information from you guys to inform some of the material that we put together at the MPO. We have like hashtag Freight Fridays, where we're actually been putting out freight tidbits into the ether on social media, and we've gotten some great feedback from the public on those. They're really interested in knowing about how goods are moving around them. So I am going to talk to you guys about next steps, and so where do we go from here now that we have all this really great material? Well, we'll continue our Speak Up Broward efforts. We're going to be listening to you. I will be back. I'll be back like Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're going to work with the community leaders around Broward for a comprehensive approach, so that we can make sure that the right messages are getting to the right people. We're also going to work with freight stakeholders like yourself and like the other ones that were mentioned earlier on this call, to ensure continued economic viability of the region, because of course it's about strengthening this economy. And of course, continuing to lead Florida in the comprehensive consideration of community with freight needs. And Daniel's being super modest. He has done some really great work statewide with our MPOAC, which is our association of MPO statewide. So if you ever have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to him directly or to me as well. My contact information will be at the end of the slideshow. And if you can go to the next slide, Daniel. The other thing I would like to invite you guys to do is to attend on September 17th. That's a Thursday, 2 to 3 p.m. We're going to be holding a Speak Up Broward online event and panel discussion on freight with some of the same freight partners we were chatting through before. We do need your input, topics, questions, big issues. If you can think of any of that, we would love to hear from you. You can shoot those emails my way. You can contact Daniel, myself, Paul Flavian, whichever one of us, but we'd really love to have you guys there. And the reason that I've referred to the Speak Up Broward online event instead of a webinar series, because a webinar series is really like, you know, a set of people talking at you, right? And if by show of hands, if you guys want to raise your hands, who on this call is tired of being on, number one, on online meetings? I'm sick of it, okay? Yes. So number two, who is sick of being talked at for an hour or 2 hours instead of being able to actually be actively part of the conversation? Yeah. I know that's something that I'm struggling with as well. So the way that we run these online events is they're interactive in nature. They've got interactive questions. We've got quizzes. We ask for feedback. We also put this through on social media. It's streamed on social media on Facebook Live. So we get some of that feedback that loops back into the presentation. And the panel gets to interact with the public. Even if, although it's not face-to-face, there still is an interactive element there, and that's what kind of sets it aside from a webinar. So next slide, Daniel. So thank you so much. Again, we would love to have you guys join us September 17th. My email is on the screen. If you need to get a hold of me and you're not able to write it down, reach out to Paul. Paul will connect with me. Me and Paul talk at least once a week. And thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to open it up for questions and comments now.
And thank you, Anthea. And through the chair, Paul, how are we on time right now?
It's 3:23. We're scheduled till 4, so we're good.
Oh no, I meant for our specific.
Oh,
I know you've given us some time.
Well, Mr. Chair, I mean, how do you?
Well, let's put it this way. I guess I'll defer to Autumn. How long do you think your presentation is?
I can take 10 minutes. This is the most important thing.
Okay. And we.
That's why I love you, Autumn.
Oh, Autumn, you're really kind. So if you guys feel comfortable turning on your cameras, and Mr. Ledoux, I would love your help in facilitating this. We've just basically given you 5 things to think about. And the first thing that would be really great to hear from the advisory committee is, what do you think of this message and branding, this magic of freight? And then of course there was that logo. And if we could bring that back up, Daniel, just so that they have that. Tell us, what are your thoughts? So. And I defer to the chair to, you know, call on folks, or you know your team better than we do.
Well, this is the first we've seen of this. So some people, I know John will have an opinion, but some others will want to think about this a little bit before providing an immediate response. So and take a look at it. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I'll start out. I'll do one at a time, give everyone a chance in between. One of the suggestions that's been made to the Florida Freight Advisory Committee, which is a whole state on a statewide level, and sometimes I don't know if they understand that on a granular level, was to look at data that supports what we're trying to do. I think the combination of ideology and data is more powerful than either one by itself. So one of the ideas was, can we come up with a template or anything from the state to the local level, but maybe we better do it on the local level and then maybe suggest it as a best practice to the rest of the state. That is to show the economic benefit of freight. It's easy for me maybe not to pick on Broward, so I'll pick on Dade, since they're right next to us and I have an office in Dade and maybe I have every right to do that. Miami-Dade County recently voted the county commission to give 140 acres to a driver's club. The driver's club is a very expensive proposition, costs about $300,000 to join it. And this is public land. This is land right at the Dade-Broward line, next to the North Dade landfill, next to a site I sold twice to Bridge Development, which is worth about $1 million an acre. They leased it for 30 acres for $30 million. I'm sorry, for 30 years for $30 million for the 140 acres. That's 17 cents a foot. Now, the justification for that was that there was an economic benefit to that drivers club, to those people driving around in a circle, because they would spend money in the clubhouse, they would spend money on the mechanics and local businesses and all that. I am sure that truck parking would create a much greater economic benefit if we could demonstrate what the importance of it is economically to the community. If you've ever done an economic analysis, essentially you have the primary benefit, secondary, and tertiaries. The tertiaries run all the way down to where the person that made some money delivering the race cars to the track there spent it when they got home and where their family spent it. If we start to look at what we do with FAU, with Nova University, with our linkages to actually create a template that we can demonstrate any aspect of trucking to the community, I think we add it to what we've got here, which is some wonderful pictures, ideology, and things that it takes too many words to explain, but to have hard data is really important. I was surprised that in the issue I'm talking about in Miami-Dade, when I tried to find the hard data, I couldn't find it. It's not anywhere. It turns out what it was a justification written up by some people in the Economic Development Office. It had nothing to do with the developers of the site or the site, et cetera. An example concrete that would be in Broward if we had the kind of thing ready to go is 61 acres that I mentioned in the previous discussion that Broward County is about to auction off to a private developer on Sheridan Street next to the former women's prison. That would be an incredible site for truck parking. It could support a full-scale truck parking facility. I think we should probably try and get in there for it before it's too late. Maybe it is too late, but it's something that is of interest. So if you start to look at what can we accomplish with some simple things, I think that would be a real benefit. Does everyone understand what I mean though by that?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your feedback. Mr. Silver, do you have anything you'd like to add on kind of what you've been seeing today from us?
Well, I think that this is terrific that you're taking the initiative to do this. I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far today. John and I we both do this, essentially the same thing. I speak with John on a daily basis, so I let him do the talking for me. So thank you, John. And we stay very much in tune with the industrial real estate markets here in South Florida. So I think what you're doing is definitely terrific. I don't have any further recommendations at this moment.
Thank you. And I know everyone will want to probably ruminate on some of this. Christina, can I ask you to chime in?
She is muted.
Christina, you might be muted. We can come back around when she gets on board here.
Okay.
I'm looking.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, there you are. Hi.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to bring forward from the Regional Planning Council kind of view?
Not at this time. Sorry, it took me a while to get unmuted. I couldn't figure out the button.
Oh, that's okay. What are kind of some of your first thoughts and from this kind of outreach of what's going on with freight and both from a data perspective, but also general public awareness?
The Regional Planning Council is beginning to do research for the Miami-Dade TPO on how the COVID-19 crisis has affected mobility in Miami-Dade County. So we are embarking on some data collection efforts in that regard, and that does include freight. And so the regional impact on freight as well is going to be something that we're going to be researching within the next year. In terms of outreach, I know that the regional economic development strategy is also being worked on in this coming year. So there's going to be outreach efforts in that regard. So we'll be reaching out to freight stakeholders to participate in that process as well. So those are some of the things going on with the Regional Planning Council in terms of activities.
That's fantastic. And part of the effort here is to bring all of this great data as we were talking about before, putting it all in one place and using it for different audiences in a way that makes sense. I think we also have Victoria Williams from the Turnpike. Victoria, did you want to chime in and kind of talk about this from a Turnpike perspective? Or you guys do a really great job with messaging and branding too. So any thoughts initially?
Victoria's still muted. Oh, there.
Okay, thank you. I'm unmuted. Sorry. I would say that our public information office has a few focused efforts, but for us, our branding would be how to pay the toll efficiently. So SunPass comes to mind. A lot of questions come to us about the cost of the travel. That's a piece that we always add to any participation in, say, an outreach event. I know at Broward, we brought the SunPass team there and sold transponders one time, as y'all may recall. So for us, that's a specific contribution, or actually even symbiotic relationship that we would have here at Turnpike.
Great, thank you. I do have a roster of your team or your committee here, Mr. Ledoux. So that's how I've kind of gone down through here. But if you wouldn't mind helping me out with who I have missed.
Sure.
I could add something while you're doing that, if you have a minute. One other thing I think that would be valuable is to point out who the truck drivers are. I think there's probably a way, Autumn, maybe you'd be best at this, to be able to get a list and a showing of how many that class licenses are held by residents of Broward County. I think it's important, and they may even have a few of them as part of the materials we're using for this media effort. These are the truck drivers. They're your neighbors, they're other parents, they're people that you see at the school. They're not always driving the truck. Often they're trying to find a place to put the truck, frankly, at night so that they can come to other events. And I think to realize that you're not just sharing the highway with something out of Transformers, you know, this giant creature. It's actually a person in there just like everybody else. I think would be valuable. I think if we could find out where that class of licenses are held, it would also help in understanding where the best places for truck parking might be in the future down the road. Because it's where they have to park their rigs overnight, where they have to retrieve them in the morning and whatnot. But I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, John. I'm interrupting. It's Victoria Williams. You know, we do participate with efforts trying to put them at local Turnpike truck, service plazas. And we have had some expansion of our parking there, and we recognize the need for additional. But as far as pushing out branding info, I've been successful at times to get good material into the service plazas. For instance, there was an effort to get PPE to the truckers, you know, so any of that kind of participation from Turnpike. John, thank you for allowing me. I just thought of it while you were mentioning that. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. I think just put, and the idea also of putting the face on it. We're seeing how popular that is in the various campaigns that are taking place, is to bring a human being out there and say, this is what happens. This is a person impacted by this. This is just like you and I.
Absolutely.
I guess one of the things I wanted to touch on too before we end the Q&A was we do have that event that Anthea mentioned starting September 17th, where everyone can interact. And one of the questions she did ask that I'm hoping to get a little bit of guidance on is are there any topics that you think should be covered in that? And I've heard a couple of really good ideas in terms of data and you know, the efforts so far, but is there anything that comes to mind that you think the public should know about, probably closer to the immediate term, on freight, and that maybe we could flesh out a little bit more in conversation with the public.
Well, Daniel, I think we're running a little, behind now in time, and we want to get on. But one of the things I will tell the committee is that we will be sending these presentations, and specifically the draft materials that you saw here, to the committee members for them to be able to provide their feedback on. So look for that to hit your emails probably by the end of this week.
Yes.
And again, we're really we really want your input into this. And one of the things I should mention, and one of the initiatives that Ms. Thomas started was something we call Freight Friday, where essentially we're sharing factoids about freight, essentially is it every Friday, Anthea?
It's every Friday. Yeah, Hannah and I work on that together. She's the other outreach person. But yeah, we're sharing facts every Friday. So if you guys have some freight facts right for me, you can also send those over as well.
Yes. So with that,
Awesome. All right, I will stop sharing and pass it on to whoever's doing the next one.
Thank you for your time today, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the final presentation today is the Florida Freight Mobility and Trade Plan Update by our esteemed freight coordinator, D4, Autumn Young.
Thanks, Paul. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. And I have a very unruly, unhappy dog in the background who decided to go nuts all of a sudden. So I'm sorry if you can hear her. Okay, so John, I just want to, before I start talking, I did want to mention that a lot of the things that you said to run Kariva, that you mentioned now, we are addressing them in a couple different ways. So one of the things that you said was to consider project limits along US 27.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that we're working with Central to even try to get that project funded. A lot of you know that the revenue forecasts are coming back. So those are not quite in, but we will be having to make a lot of adjustments. But we are still looking at trying to fund the PD&E, and part of that conversation is the limits. So I did hear you. Thank you for that input.
Thank you.
You mentioned trying to look at county economic information.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that right now.
Okay.
So if I didn't answer your question by the end, feel free to let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Many of you are already on the Florida Freight Advisory Committee, so I don't want to be too repetitive, but I do want to cover it in case some of you aren't aware. We started the Freight Mobility and Trade Plan last year in 2019. Just a quick history of how we do freight planning at DOT. We've always done freight planning. Florida has some of the best roads if you talk to truck drivers, and there's a reason for that. But federal policies really help guide that. So in 2012, the MAP Act was adopted, and then later in 2015, so was the FAST Act. The FAST Act required all states to have statewide freight plans, and DOT's approach was to establish the district freight coordinators, you all know me, but also a standalone office. And as you'll see, that has allowed us to do a great number of activities and studies, and we're now transitioning, studies into actual movement that's going to affect policy. And I'll tie this all in together, but I just wanted to show you that, legislative policy has really impacted the way that DOTs across the country has handled this, and certainly DOT. So in 2020, we did update the freight plan from the 2016 version. And if you don't know what the statewide freight plan is, it's a plan that really outlines freight movement all across Florida and helps us strategically understand how we make investments, because we don't move freight as an agency. So it's very important that we go through this exercise to touch base with industry and make sure we're getting it right and understand any new issues that have come up. As you can imagine, that plan that we did last year, if we did it right now, would look even different. So that's a very important reason why we do this. The other reason is because we have to report back to the governor on how we are improving the economy through our transportation network. And so this plan really helps us to identify it. We don't just talk about highway, we also take a look at our airports, seaports, and rail lines. So it's broken down into many steps, but last year, the first step was to identify the goals, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a second. We then developed objectives, and then that blue is all these different kind of inputs that came to refine those objectives. So the goals and the objectives were very subjective, based off of subject matter expertise. And then we did a bunch of activities, including meeting with you guys to try to understand how we needed to modify them. Those turned into recommendations, which I'm going to also talk about. And then the last part is that action plan. And that's where we are today. So just to jog your memory, this is the freight forum that we did last year. A lot of you came out, I spoke, we workshopped it, you gave great input. And that wrapped up into some findings. So from District 4, we talked a lot about education and awareness. And as you can see, Broward MPO has got that covered. Thank you guys. The other thing that we've talked about a lot, truck parking, first and last mile connectivity, empty backhaul was a big issue in District 5 and 4. And then we also talked quite a bit about e-commerce and new technology like blockchain, how might the department support that, and then intermodal connectivity. So just a few things, but overall, lots of information that was collected at these workshops. Again, they went into the objectives. So there's 10 here. I don't expect you to read through all of them. They're quite diverse. They include things like making sure that the freight system as we know it today in Florida is in a state of good repair, but it also talks about things that are a little bit more esoteric, like removing institutional policies and funding bottlenecks that are preventing us from advocating for freight better within the transportation planning process. So, you know, a lot of information, but what's the point? Before I move on to what we're doing now, the question on everybody's mind generally, and you know, this would be really specific for Dr. Yusente if she was here, is what happens to the projects? So in the past, National Highway Freight Program funding, which was enacted through the FAST Act, was dictated by a process from the previous FMTP, the Freight Mobility and Trade Plan. Now that we've updated that process has changed. But the major steps are still in place. So we identify projects, the Broward MPO identified projects, sent them to the department through the MPOAC. The FTAC helped with that process. We then classify the projects and screen them for eligibility. They have to be on certain roads, meet certain requirements dictated by the feds. And then we do a quantitative and qualitative evaluation. That's the thing that has changed and is ongoing right now. So I don't want to spend too much time on it because I don't have a whole lot of information, but I'd be happy to talk about it at the next quarterly meeting and keep you all informed about how that prioritization process has changed and what we've learned from a regional basis, because the more you and I are on the same page, the more we can advocate for regional needs at a statewide level. So I've been told that no presentation is complete without a chart you can't understand, and this is mine. So
thank you.
Here. At the end in the green is just a sort of lengthy process, and we get to two things. We get an investment plan, and then we're doing something very unique, which is that we're looking at projects that are eligible for federal grants in a comprehensive method. And once we have more information about that, that is definitely something I'm going to be bringing to you, because the more that we can partner on federal grants as a region, the more likely we are to secure them. And this is not just for us, but this is also for the railway, and this is also for the ports. So more on that to come. Now let's talk about that action plan. You know, what is the end result of this huge, long, year-long process of getting your input? Well, we conducted more analysis. So this is an example of something that we did. We looked at freight-intensive areas to help inform some of our processes, that prioritization process I was talking about. And what happened to that? Well, again, I told you it turned out into action items, you know, strategic recommendations, things that we can actually do. And there were 154 of them. That's quite a lot. And they focused on different areas: truck parking, freight resiliency, safety, intermodal connections, and EV adoption. one quick update, we did get all of the interstate system adopted under Federal Highways new designation, which is the, oh geez, the name escapes me and I helped put together the application, but it's alternative fuel designation. I just remembered it. And that could potentially lead to an opening for Florida to be eligible for certain types of grants. And we're working on a master plan as requested by Governor DeSantis. So that's moving along. But what were the top challenges? And these are all familiar to all of you: congestion bottlenecks, truck parking, and empty backhaul. So I'm gonna take these one at a time and tell you what we've done or what we're planning to do. And just know that this is what I'm about to show you are statewide efforts, which is really important because I don't want to look at freight just in District 4. We needed to make sure that we were all doing it together, and that's what's happening. But certainly some of your questions or concerns I can do here in the district. So I'd like to hear those as well if you don't see it in what we're doing statewide. Okay, the first one, congestion and bottlenecks. This is complete. What we heard was that this is a very big issue. Congestion on the highways affect everyone, especially freight, because it costs them more money. And we analyzed them and they're now included in the prioritization process. So that's complete and we can move on. Truck parking, there's multiple statewide efforts. Last year, we did a statewide truck parking assessment that's available on fdot.gov for everyone to view. We're doing county freight profiles, which is really important. John, you just asked, can you show economic information? Yes, we can, and yes, we will. So we'll talk about that. And we're advancing our truck parking availability system. So the county profiles are extremely important for all the reasons John just said, so I can skip that part of my presentation and get to the point. We're going to be putting together a brochure, but the good thing is that the consultant that's developing this statewide also works for me down here, so we can add to it. We can make it a little bit more robust. So we'll probably have for sake of time, we'll have a conversation offline. Maybe I'll exchange some emails with you guys. What would you like to see in it? And then we can provide that information to the MPO so they can use it in their messaging plan. For the TPAS program, a lot of you are familiar with this. These were electronic devices that actually detect if trucks are using parking along the Florida interstate system. We then transmit that information. It's now moving into more advanced stages. So we're improving our accuracy. We are also going to be doing some predictive analysis. And then, this is the kicker, maybe incorporating private sector. So these are what the phases look like, phases 1, 2, and 3. We're currently in phase 1. I don't have timelines on these, especially because of the revenue forecast, but I will keep you guys informed. Stage 2 is including, again, more predictive analysis, and that stage 3 looks at, can we incorporate private sector into this system? That's a huge question. So when we talked about the more esoteric things, policy, this is one of those examples, and we're hoping that this is going to be successful in Florida. It's been done across the country in other places, but of course we want to do it just a little bit better. So empty backhaul. This is a challenge, right? Because DOT has nothing to do with really dictating what's going to be put in a truck that may be empty. So how do we do this strategically and try to add value in a way that's not silly? The first thing that we're doing is doing a statewide commodity flow analysis. Again, to John's point, we want to know and make it relatable to people. The second thing is updating our statewide facility database and taxonomy. So the first one I want to touch on, I think that's a little bit more challenging to understand, is this freight facility database. Remember, John, when you were just talking about you need somebody with real estate experience because you're getting it wrong?
Yeah.
Well, we heard you. So we're taking another look at this and trying to make sure that we understand it. We're actually using specialized data to do this analysis. And this is something that I would like to talk to you and maybe Michael Silver about at some point in time to get your input. And really important things here is understanding the taxonomy. So not just is it industrial land use, but really making sure we understand it at a more complex level. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, let me just skip along here. Oh, I seem to be missing a slide, I'm sorry, was that statewide commodity flow. So statewide commodity flow is going to help us put all of that information together. And that project, I'm sorry, I got my title wrong on this slide. That project is going to be complete by February 2020. Okay, so we're really looking, it doesn't go down really granular into the county, but we will know what's coming in and out of Broward County, for sure. And then the next one is that database. So again, we're trying to improve the database. Why is this so important? Because it feeds into our models and all of the planning. So you just saw it on US 27. This would have been a great example that if we had a more robust data set that we could speak to and actually incorporate into our models, all of those traffic forecasts that you saw that Ron had 2 images side by side, that would have been impacted by this information. So we want to get it right. And then the last point there underneath the objective is that when we bring it all down, what does it mean? It means that trip generation, meaning understanding where trucks are moving to and going from, is going to be more understood within our data sets, helping us move into the 21st century. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
so that's a lot. You've heard a lot today, not only from me, but from other people, but I want to know, do you have questions about what we're doing at a statewide level? And do you have any future interest in me coming back and talking in more detail about any one of these subjects?
yes. Please. The statewide commodity flow is especially interesting.
Okay.
We hear so much in the conferences that I go to, and I only go to a fraction of them, with the airports and seaports, with Port Everglades and Miami International, about perishables and the need for facilities, but nobody knows what the commodity flow really is. How much of it is going, once it comes through the port, the USDA inspects it, there seems to be no way of keeping track of where it goes. Some of it gets unloaded, then, a less than load is taken off, then it continues on, then on and on. And we don't really know where it ends up, how far out of South Florida it travels, and even what's going up to Philadelphia, how much of it makes its way back down to South Florida. So that would be really valuable.
I would be happy to bring it back. And I'll tell you something, John, this started in the data group, people who like numbers and data sets, not necessarily great people. And I can think of all of you, from Natasha to Bob to Michael Silver and John Dom. I think something like this would impact all of you. We want to make sure we're getting it right, because it could either be useful to you or it could not.
It would be useful, I think, to us, and especially to the people we work with. Like Port Everglades is looking at the need maybe for a perishables facility. So the question then becomes, how much of a need is there really? Does it need to be in the port? Can it be how many miles from the port to still be effective? And that's a question that then the developers start to ask the people that are looking to convert the facilities, the operators and all. So that's very, very helpful information. Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention, were you on the FAC call the other day?
Yeah, so a lot of
I
this.
thought you might have been, yeah. One of the things that we've talked about is whether we can actually get grant money funneled through the state. We didn't get to talk about it this time because we ran out of time. But if grant money federally can be funded through the state from various sources to be used for leasing of property that's controlled by either the state of Florida, often through the trustees of the Internal Improvement Trust of Florida, TIITF, and or the local departments like Port Everglades Department, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport, in Miami-Dade County, their counterparts. The reason is they're enterprise funds. If they just give up a piece of land, even for a great idea like truck parking, they get nothing back for it. And it's just gone. If they sell it, it goes into the general fund and it's just gone. If they can lease it for any reasonable amount, at least they have a constant source of income. And with something like truck parking, it's something that they need may not last forever, as we get different types of vehicles, electric vehicles, we get more autonomously operated vehicles down the road, it enables the property to revert back for another higher and better use maybe, by 2035. But in the interim, there's a bunch of property sitting around Broward County that would be great for truck parking. I mean, not to, and I'll go ahead and upset a number of people that probably don't want to talk about it because they want to secretly do their deals. But you know, there's the property that Broward County just acquired with general funds south of the runway, the Shaw family property. There's a lot of land there that's just sitting. And all it has to do is be built up to grade, and you could park containers, you could put reefer plug storage, reefer stacks. You could put a lot of stuff on there that the port surely needs, or their tenants need it. Then there's, you know, properties west of Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport. There's a number of employee parking lots that'll be needed less and less as we move forward with the master plan on the airport. And that's another 4,800 spaces to replace the employee lots. So all that starts to become available. And
So John,
what happens with it?
John, I'm going to jump in just for just a second. What you're talking about, we've certainly looked at, but we haven't been able to make a lot of progress. What's required for us to really vet like that and get all the parties at the same table is a workshop. So we did have FHWA coming down. They do like an annual circulation where they go around across the country and do workshops for the DOTs. We were going to have one in our region for truck parking for this particular reason, to work on these types of issues. Let me check and see where we are with that with COVID kind of up in the air. But let me see, because the intention was to bring those ideas to the table, work on them and make progress since we just completed the study. So let me.
That'd be great. Yeah, we got kind of a short end of that parking study that was done by the state, because they said we didn't have that big a need in South Florida.
Sure did.
Yeah, we have probably 5 times the rest of the state combined. Yeah, thanks.
So what about any of the other board members? Was there anything that I showed you that maybe you would want me to come back and give you a little bit more detail in? My job easy. Okay.
The empty back hall too. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Autumn. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
We have a few minutes left. I guess I will open it up to the members who are still on, which we still have 18 of you. Does anybody want to cover any other topics before we adjourn? With that, Paul, I guess I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I'd like to say it's very nice to see you guys, even if it's just, you know, on a camera. It's been a while.
You look good, Paul.
Since January, it was our last meeting. So hopefully our next meeting will be in person. That's, I'm knocking on wood. And probably looking at late October, sometime in November.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, so, you know, and again, I'll be sending out all the presentations and the freight outreach materials to you guys for you to review and provide some comment on. And with that, I think we're done. And again, thank you all for coming.
Thank
you, Mr. Chair, for agreeing.
Thank you all. With that, we'll conclude and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for participating. Have a good day.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Thank you, Christine.